My name is Usman, and this is TV Loves Me Talks, my podcast series, and today it's getting personal. I'm going to talk about music and the influence and effect it's had on my life. I'm going to use it as an example of how you can take something which you're passionate about or something that you're really good at and use it as a way to develop yourself, either personally or in terms of your experiences. You're probably wondering why I'm talking about myself today and why I'm not doing a proper podcast. The reason is I've been making content for over a year now. I've been making YouTube videos and now I've started podcasts. And the one thing that I realized is if you don't like the person, you don't care about what they're making. So the only way for you to get to know me is if I talk about myself. And then that way you can make your own decision. It may be that I just don't come across well or that my stuff is actually rubbish, but I've got to try. It's going to be a little bit of a story today. So if that's not your sort of thing, I completely understand. But if you're vaguely interested, then bear with me. You never know. You might like it. When I was really young, I was not really into music like some kids are. Although my mum tells me I somehow learnt this Bollywood song that used to get played on the radio. And when I look back at it, it's a really depressing song for a 1-year-old to sing. Honestly, it's really embarrassing, but if you really want to know, I'll put it in at the end. So other than this one song, I was never really into music. Up until about the age of 10 or 11, when all my friends started listening to rap music. Now, rap music was good, but now that I think back, I think the only reason I kind of liked it because everyone else thought it was cool and it had swear words in it. And I probably thought I was grown up and gangster listening to something like that when I really shouldn't be. So the next few years, I was into rap music. Tupac and Biggie. You know, the classics. Even then I had taste. I'd listen to it and probably not really understand it. And then obviously after a few years, I got a bit older and then I did start to understand it a little bit. That's where things changed. It wasn't really my thing. I was this shy, geeky little kid. And the things they were talking about, it just didn't appeal to me that much. But the one thing it did teach me was the value of lyrics. As I got older, I appreciated the lyrics rather than the content of the lyrics, if that kind of makes sense. The way it was almost like poetry, the way that they'd make it rhyme and it all kind of made sense. So that's when I started thinking about music rather than just listening to music. Then Asian music came along, which forms the bulk of this podcast. Again, if that's not your sort of thing, feel free to stop now. So the only Asian music I'd been exposed to was Bollywood. And Bollywood was this weird thing that I used to watch in films with my mum. The one thing my mum taught me when I was younger was Urdu. I'd learned to speak it, write it, and read it. So I could understand it to a good level. And obviously Asian music is all about lyrics for me. But we'll get to that in a second. So at that time, Asian music was just something that your parents listened to. And it was definitely not cool to listen to it. Then my cousin introduced me to Bhangra. It was his sort of enthusiasm and love for it which kind of rubbed off on me. And I even remember the cringy first song that I ever heard. I gotta go, turbo flow, Lamborghini Diablo, wearing the Moschino, ipshi la la po. So this was new territory for me. I was listening to anything and everything that I could get hold of. And because of the language thing, it kind of drew me towards it. And it was like this secret guilty pleasure. Because most of my friends wouldn't even dare listen to that. And if they knew I did, they'd probably make fun of me. Then I stumbled across this website called Desi Tunes for You, where you could download pretty much any song that was out there. This was in the early days of the internet. It was not easy to find music at that time. And this site just made it easy. So alongside downloading music from this website, they also had reviews on music. Again, early stages of the internet. Hard to find music or reviews on music. You just kind of had to go and buy a CD and hope for the best. So this was new. They were reviewing things, interviewing people. And for whatever reason, I emailed this website and I said, I'd like to review music. So I got a reply back and they said, okay. So very quickly, I became one of the main people reviewing on this site. I was given my opinion, not always complimentary, about music that was coming out. And because this site was so big at the time, any bad review had a really big impact on CD sales. So I was getting a lot of hate mail, which I found really funny. So through this website, we were getting invited to events. We were meeting singers, artists. And for this shy kid from Manchester, this was amazing. So I'd go there, I'd talk to people. People would say, oh, what do you do? And I'd tell them about the website. And they're like, oh, that's you. You're the guy. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up being on the radio. I know I'm skipping through quite a lot of things here, but I'm trying to keep it brief. I don't want to bore you. We're getting to the good part, trust me. So fast forward a year or two. I get sent this link to a song and video by this new artist. And to me, this guy was changing the whole game in one single track. I had to know more. I emailed the company, bombarded them with phone calls. I said, I need to know more about your artist. Had a few conversations on the phone with his manager. So I asked him, I said, how can I help? He said, I need a lot of people to hear this song. Do you know anyone? I knew a few people at the BBC, so I sent over his song. Then he asked, I need to get the CD in every single shop. Do you know anyone? I said, yes. So I managed to sort out a distribution deal, so his CD would be in every Asian music shop in the UK. The artist. If you're into Asian music, you know who this is. About 10 years ago, he completely took over. And it's nice to look back and think I had a very small part in his journey. For those of you who might even have a CD of his, if you look inside the cover, you'll see a very little thank you for me as well. So at this stage, music's taking over. I'm writing for a website, I'm on the radio, and then I get offered a chance to be on television as a presenter of a music show. Again, jumped at the chance. For someone who used to be an insecure person when I was younger, it was completely changing me as a person. I was more confident. I was unrecognizable from the person I used to be, all because of music. Never in a million years would the younger me ever have thought I'd be on stage in front of thousands of people hosting a huge outdoor event. And then, there I am, on stage, Manchester Miller, 10, 20,000 people, and little old me on the stage. Now, I'm not telling you this to show off. I'm telling you this because music changed everything for me. I took one risk by emailing one website, and then everything spiraled from there. So if there's something that you like and an opportunity comes along, then take it. That's my advice. I was this geeky science kid, doing my A-levels in biology and chemistry, going on to do pharmacy. Now all of a sudden I'm doing all these other things that you would not associate with that at all. And now that I think back, I'm glad I took that one risk. I was passionate about something, music at the time, and I used that as my focus and motivation. Now for you, it doesn't have to be music. It can be anything that you're passionate about, whether it's baking or fashion or writing or whatever. If an opportunity comes along, just take it. Just make that call, send that email, leave a comment, DM someone, do something. Don't let an opportunity pass by. You never know what it could lead to. So getting back on track. My group of friends used to all hang out at this one particular shisha bar, owned by a very good friend of mine. Along came his cousin one day. I used to host a weekly event at this place. We'd have Asian songs with the lyrics on the screen, and people would sing along. I'm sure you get the concept. Anyway, so his cousins come along, and after everything's closed and we're just chilling at the end of the night, his cousin begins to sing, and he has an amazing voice. And as we get talking, he says he wants to get into music. So despite all the things I've done, I've never worked with an artist like this. I had a lot of contacts, I had a lot of knowledge. This was someone with no singing background, no vocal training. So I didn't really know what I could do. I'd be in the studio with these guys. One day they'd made a beat and everyone was sat around and they're trying to write songs. They're trying to write a song to match this beat. And what's happened is I've had an idea. I'm going to have to rewind a little bit to give you a little bit of context. Remember I mentioned about my mum teaching me Urdu? So I really loved Urdu. I wanted to understand it, how intricate it was, all the influences. Remember, I was a geek. So I was drawn to Shairi or Urdu poetry. I used to read a little bit of it and I used to try and even write some of it, which I did. I didn't know at the time that that's exactly what my mum used to do when she was younger. So that's... You'll know that obviously I had a good understanding of Urdu, about lyrics, about poetry. So when they were trying to rack their brains, trying to find lyrics for this particular song, I gave some input and they liked it. And then that became this person's very first song. It never got released officially, but he would perform it at many places. And that was the start of his journey. And that person is a singer called Nafis. So I spent a lot of time with him, taught him about social media and how to answer questions from people who may be interviewing him, etc. And eventually, after he gained some success and popularity, there was a song that I'd written early on in the days of the studio, which got released officially. And that song went to number 1 in the Asian charts. It was his first ever number 1 record. Obviously, he went on to have many more. But for me, that was a huge, huge thing. I had a song that went to number 1. Now, not the type of number 1 that you will probably see if you follow many Asian artists, where they get a number 1 on iTunes because a few hundred people have downloaded their song. It goes to number 1 for a few minutes or maybe a day or two and then disappears from view. Real, on the BBC, announced as number 1. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail. I don't want you to think this podcast is about me talking about myself and saying how great I am. Again, this is just about opportunity, using your passion, being in the right place, being surrounded by the right people. Anything can happen. So that describes the part of my journey in which I fell in love with music. Then things changed. So what I learned is Asian music, specifically in the UK, is a popularity contest. It's not about the music, it's about how popular you are, how many fans you have. A lot of artists out there are producing substandard music. But just because they have a following, they might look good, they might dress well, their fans, young children, it's not their fault, will blindly follow them, despite the majority of them being unable to sing. Yep, I said it. So at this point, my life's moved on. I'm not doing any of those things, not on the radio, not on TV, not writing. I'm just looking from the outside. I'm a fan. So I'm listening to everyone's music and being constantly disappointed. The problem is that people that listen to music now, young people that listen to music now, don't have that same, I won't say love, because I'm sure they love whatever music they love, but I don't think they go into the intricacies or the technical aspects of music. They don't care, they're not bothered. Auto-tuners finish that. And as long as there's a catchy hook, people will listen to it. So I find myself liking less and less songs. I don't really listen to music in the car as much as I did. I just find it a sad, sad state of affairs. It's because I'm back to square one. I'm at a place where some of you might be, where you've got experience or you've got passion about a particular field and you know you can make a difference. But rather than let myself be convinced by the idea that there's nothing I could possibly do now, or it's too late, or whatever other excuse, I thought I'd take a risk. And my point is, you should too. This is what I'm doing. This is my risk. By making all this content, using my skills in being able to write about things, being able to talk about things and make videos about things, in order to hopefully reach out and meet those people who are going to inspire me or those who I can inspire. So the people who I can help reach their goals, and maybe there's someone out there listening who can help me reach mine. After all, this is the whole point of me doing this. It's not about likes or followers. It's just to be someone who's got a positive influence, someone whose opinion matters. I've used music as an example in this case, but there's so many other experiences of work that I've got that I want to try and get back into. Obviously, all this might not work. Maybe no one listens to this. Maybe the right people don't listen to this. But I'll keep trying, because I'd rather know that I tried to do something than do nothing at all. Don't you think? Anything I've mentioned, you can get me at all of my social networks, which is at TV Loves Me. And for those of you who are still listening and who are still bothered, this is the song I used to sing when I was young. Goodbye.
मेरी किस्मत में तू नहीं शायद, क्यों तेरा इंतजार करता हूँ। मैं तुझे कल भी प्यार करता था, मैं तुझे